With the season coming to a close, it is a good time to look at a lot of the performers for Arsenal this season. This includes picking our player of the season, which for once is actually quite a hard decision amongst Arsenal fans. In this video, we're going to go through every single probable winner and people who are unlucky to miss out. But before we get into that, if you like this video, can you please like and subscribe for any more content around Arsenal and football daily. Now, to me, this decision is actually really hard, and by the end of the video, you're going to see who I actually picked to be player of the season. But I do think there's a lot of candidates this year, and I don't think it's as clear cut as it has been in prior years for Arsenal. With that being said, my first candidate is Gabriel. Now, I would say Gabriel, out of all our players, is probably one of the most inspiring. He was there when the team was awful in 2020, and despite him always playing quite well, he can never rely on his other defenders to actually make good decisions, so it made him look worse, and he did make some mistakes. But since Arteta has developed him over the last few years, he has turned into a world-class defender, obviously next to Saliba, who deserves immense credit. Our defence this year has been brilliant as a system, and you'll probably see a lot of them in this video, but in my opinion, Gabriel has been at the top of that a lot of the time. I thought last year he was very good and almost as good as Saliba, but when Saliba got injured, you kind of saw him drop off a little bit next to Holding, which is understandable, but this season I think he has been there about with Saliba. His decision making has got a lot better. He's much more comfortable on the ball at spreading the ball out wide to the left and right side, and he's not making any mistakes anymore. He is really comfortable at being aggressive defensively and pushing over and making sure he can win the duels. The most impressive performances is when he is playing against them physical strikers. When he's playing against them Erling Haaland, he has done really well at trying to stop them throughout the game. Now, there's obviously been some games recently where I think he's been a bit off, maybe not recently, but like the Bayern game, I don't think he was brilliant in. You could say nerves, and he is still a little young, and the defense not being great in them games overall is not all down to him. I also think his leadership this season has really played a part. He's a great leader for Saliba, obviously 3 years older than him. He really tells him where to go and what to do, which I think is really important, and he is really good at managing the defense overall. I think he's done a great job this season, and that's not even talking about his goal scoring side. He obviously only scored 4 goals in the league, but there have been a lot more recently, and he's such a threat from any sort of corners, aerial duels, and winning headers in the air that he is a really elite player, and it's great to have him at the club, and he definitely deserves to be in our top 3, I believe. And when talking about Gabriel, you have to talk about Saliba. Now, I'm going to keep this short because it's very much the same as Gabriel, but I do think Saliba has gone under the radar this season. It is because Gabriel, I think, has been excelling or doing better than we thought he could ever do, and Saliba has been about as good as you expect him to be, one of the best defenders in the world. Now, this guy's been brilliant all season. He has helped Gabriel a lot, which I do think makes Gabriel better, so you could definitely give him points for that. I think such as the Bournemouth game, you saw Gabriel make some mistakes and Saliba come over, but Saliba's performances against the best strikers in the world, against the hard places to go, we're obviously getting man of the matches in all them big games, kind of puts him in this list alone. He's been brilliant all season yet again. I mean, our whole defense has, you can realistically put all of them in this category because we have been amazing defensively, and obviously the two partnership in defense is one of the big reasons for that. They're so good together and they bring the best out of each other, but I do think Saliba by himself is individually brilliant against probably anyone. And the last defender that I'm going to mention is Ben White, because I could go on about all of the defenders, but them 3 have been the 3 that have been prominent in the team this year, and I think all of them have been brilliant, and I've been definitely on the Ben White train for a while now. I do think he definitely struggled at the start of the season. I wouldn't say he was poor, but I wouldn't say he was the best we've ever seen him. He kind of struggled on the ball sometimes, but it did come out that he was obviously had that knock and he was just playing through it. Since about January, since the team has got better, Ben White, in my opinion, has been one of the best players in the Premier League. Not only is his goals and assists getting better, which is obviously nice to happen, but it's not necessarily needed. His tackles, his aerials ones, his blocks are getting so much more as well. He has shown so much calmness down there that we trust him to have the ball majority of the game. He is making a lot of passes and a lot of progressive passes per 90 because we trust him to have it and create chances, and I think he's been so good going forward. It shows so much encouragement from Ben White, and I think that is now his position. Even when Timber comes in, who definitely prefers probably to play that right back spot than the left back, you're going to see Ben White start because he's that good. And the fact this year he changed to inverting role a bit more and he still was excelled a lot, I think to me he's one of the best players in this club and he deserved that new contract completely. Now, while there's definitely good shouts for people like Raya, I think has been really good as well, and people like Tomiyasu or Kivior, in my opinion the left backs haven't played enough to be considered in this role, and it has been a bit of a liability for us this season. And while I think Raya has been good, obviously getting the Golden Glove, a lot of that credit has to go to the 3 players I've already mentioned, so I'm not really going to include him in here, but he's had a good year overall. For the first time, we're going to go into the midfield. Now, you could consider a lot of players yet again. We've had a great season, like I've said. The first one I'm going to talk about is Martin Ødegaard, which which might be a bit controversial if you go on Twitter any time of the day. Now, if you look at his goals and assists compared to last season, they are obviously down, but he is playing a deeper role, so you will allow that in this situation. If you look at his creative stats though, and his chances he's creating per game, he is in some of the best in Europe, and even a per game per 90. He's making around 9 progressive passes, 5 shot creating action, 2.5 carries. It's much better than it was at the start of the season, where he was definitely shooting too much and not creating anything. And this is the thing, Ødegaard was kind of poor at the start of the season, and it was definitely down to his role, and I think his role has improved throughout the season. Do I think he's been completely better? No, I still think his role isn't the best. I'd rather see him play as an 8 sometimes than as 10, just because I don't think him being that close to Saka, at least on that right side, is helping us in the long term. But he still should be considered in this role. I personally wouldn't put him in my Premier League team of the year. I don't think he's been our best midfielder, let alone deserve to be in the team of the season, but he has been a great season still. I think he's been playing at a 9 out of 10 in about a 4 out of 5 role for him. I know we could get more out of Ødegaard. I know he can be better, and I think some of the tactical issues have upon from him having to be in the team because of his pressing, but we will obviously see that going into the future. And when talking about Arsenal midfielders, you simply have to talk about Declan Rice. Now, the impact that this guy has had since he has joined has probably been the biggest impact someone has made straight away from signing since Alexis Sanchez, maybe, or maybe Santi Cazorla. But he is a defensive player, which obviously I know he's been playing as an 8, so he's been playing a lot more forward, but he has been unreal this season. He has definitely put Arsenal onto another level, which we wanted to happen and expected to happen from a board perspective, but it wasn't necessarily guaranteed. He's been ever present in the side, playing every single game in the Premier League, which is great that he's always involved, and he played every game in the Champions League as well. His passing, his defensive stats are brilliant. He's great at running with the ball. We know how brilliant he is, but obviously everyone's been surprised by his goal scoring and assist making. Obviously the adaptation of putting him on corners has worked wonders, and the fact he has 7 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League this season is a lot for someone that did not get any goal contributions at all at West Ham. I think we have made him to an even better player than he was at West Ham, and do I think he should stay in that 8 role? Probably not, because I'd rather see him in the 6. I think it's harder to buy a 6 in the market right now, but he can definitely play in that 8 role when we need him to, which I think definitely makes the team a lot more fluid and a lot more better overall, where we can change our midfield up. And I've seen a lot of criticism of people saying if you choose Declan Rice, it's the easy option. I don't really believe that. Declan Rice, I think individually has made our team a lot better, and I think if he wasn't there for every single game, we would be a lot worse compared to a lot of other players in the team. And because defensive players don't really get the credit that they deserve a lot of the times, like Rodri not even being in the Player of the Season nomination, it's hard to see what they do. But when you watch Declan Rice, you realise his impact and his importance on the team. And to me, I think as someone that's just come into the team, he deserves a lot of credit for that, even at the money we spent. And going into attack, I'm only going to speak about one player, because even though our attack has scored a lot of goals, I think maybe you can consider a lot to be honourable mentions, but I don't know if they've been as good as the other positions in our team, considering how good our defence has been and our midfield. And that is, of course, Bukayo Saka. Now, for some reason, Saka gets so much hate on Twitter, which I never understand. Maybe people are jealous because he is that good for Arsenal. Even looking away from the fact he's got so many goals and assists this season, he's our top goal scorer, he's almost our top assister. The impact that this guy has in games when he plays really well is amazing. And the fact that if you look at his defensive numbers compared to other wingers, he is doing 2 or 3 times more than they are. So he's really working hard every single game and helping us all around the pitch. Now, he may not be the most flashy player on the ball, and a lot of the times he has 2 or 3 men up against him, which makes it hard. So I don't really think it's fair to say that he's been bad in situations. He most of the time gets manned up on, and I don't think the tactics necessarily help him in that way. But let's hope next season when we get a new centre mid in, it can kind of balance it out a little bit more and help him get into more 1v1s than 2v1s rather than that. But even then, like the young age that this guy is, every year his goals and assists are improving. The amount he has scored for us, the amount he has done for us, and most of the time he does turn up in big games. Maybe not in some games, but he has overall. And the goals and assists he's got this season have been very important, and he's a very clutch player. He takes penalties with a lot of confidence nowadays, which he used to not to, and he puts them away easily, and he is a really, really top player that deserves a lot of credit. I think if you're looking at honourable mentions, you have to consider people like Trossard, who have done amazing, scoring his most goals ever in a season, and people like Havertz, who in the running have been utterly brilliant. But I think if Havertz played up front for the whole season, then you could probably consider him a little bit more. And there was a lot of problems that we had at the start of the season with these players, so I don't know if overall they've been brilliant. But yeah, again, I said the same with Ben White and Ødegaard, and I've put them in, so I guess it's up to my opinion. But in my opinion, after a lot of decision making, I think third place I'm going to go with Gabriel, because I think his season has excelled what I expected him to do rather than Saliba, despite them both being good. I think second place I'm going to give it to Bukayo Saka, because he has still turned up a lot for us and has been getting a lot of hate for absolutely no reason. season, and in a way it's solidarity that he has actually been this good for us and he's one of our best players. And I think number one is Declan Rice. I know people might say it's the easy option, but I don't really care. Declan Rice, in my opinion, has been so impactful since he joined. I don't think we're going to get that from another signing anytime soon. We might get good players, but Declan Rice has literally transformed the club and we are so much better controlled and more solid team than we were before. That's my opinion. In the comments, let me know what your guys' opinion and who is your third, second and first for player of the season. And I'd like to know who you guys think will actually get it third, second and first in our awards when we announce them next week. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it as always. If you want to see my video about Benjamin Sesko, who potentially might join Arsenal, watch my video yesterday about how he could fit into our setup. See you in the next one.